So, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Sharon Whiteman, and it's my great pleasure and privilege to be here with Karen Dennis this morning. It's very exciting to have Karen. I usually get her once and twice a year, and she's very generous in saying yes. I'd like to also acknowledge my partners in crime and health, Gary Knapp and Diana Hunter, and we love being here with you each and every week on our Zoom conference. And we know that many of you listen to this down the track, and this time that Karen's given to us so generously today is one of the things that keep on giving. So it'll be in the archive and you can review it at any time. A little bit about Karen's background is she's a former nurse, the mother of 4 children and grandmother to 6. She studied nutrition and supplementation for many years and began her Manitech business in 2002. She reached the 6-figure income level in just over 2 years and has earned many awards in the process. She was Associate of the Year for many years, 2 years. She gets embarrassed when I name off all these dates. She was in the top international business builders of the year in 2007 and again in 2013, and is in the top 5 associates, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years in total. So Karen, that's just an awesome accolade for you and an indication of your dedication to what we have here. In 2012, she was a recipient of the Giving Spirit Award in Australasia and also inducted to the $1 Million Club, a prestigious group comprised of associates who've earned over $1 million in their Manitech business. She's an awesome wellness warrior and home business coach. And today we're going to be talking about your most frequently asked questions. So Karen and I had time to have a little quick discussion this morning. But Karen, first of all, welcome to our Saturday call.
Thank you, Sharon. Thanks. And hello, everybody on the call. Thanks so much.
So I thought, one of our favorite topics is the terrain model, and any question that they may throw at us today or ask of you is underpinned by understanding the terrain model. So Karen, maybe we should start with that. And I know, we both feel very passionate about this topic.
Yes, I do. Well, the terrain is sort of a reference, I suppose, to the earth compared to our bodies, to put it simply. And I think one of the basic premises we need to understand with health today and what we have to offer with the Manitech products is firstly what's happened to the terrain of the earth, what's happening with how food is grown. That is our major issue, because what we have is hopefully providing what's missing in people's diet. So a lot of things have happened to the way our food is grown, and that's a basic premise when you're talking to anybody about why they need our supplements. The great massive thing that seems to be very prevalent in my mind these days is this use of glyphosate for a start. Glyphosate is a poison used to control weeds, and although I come from a farming background, I'm very sorry to say that a lot of farmers just can't seem to manage without it. And it's a very serious chemical. It kills any animals, any microbes in the soil. And it's very, very widely used in all farming, banana plantations, everywhere. But the big issue another huge issue with glyphosate that I only learnt recently is it actually binds minerals, so the plants can't uptake minerals in the soil. And, we need minerals. We can't absorb a lot of vitamins without the correct minerals. So the terrain of the soil is a major thing. And similarly, our body is our terrain, of what it actually needs for everything to function correctly. And our body can only really be as good as what we ingest, what's in the air around us, our attitudes, of course. There's a big thing about epigenetics these days, how we think and how we feel. But, looking after our terrain, if we want to be well and healthy, we have to know what we need. We have to know what we need. And unfortunately, most people don't know what we need. They don't know how to look after their bodies. And I think I've sort of coined it in 2 words these days: avoiding and adding. What we need to avoid and what we need to add. What's missing that we need and what's going in that we don't need and is causing our bodies more destruction. And we don't always have control over what we avoid. There's a lot of chemicals and toxins in the air that it's a bit hard for us to avoid. But knowing what we can do for the best for our own body's terrain is just key, and that's what we're going to get into today, hopefully. Yeah. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, that's awesome. But I think sometimes when you tell some of the stories about what your dad does, when your dad started to change his farming techniques and how that, deep, it's almost a genetic lineage of knowledge. And I think it's really important that we pass that on. I have incredible respect for your parents, and I think their story should be told.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Sharon. Yeah. Well, my dad. This could take a long time, so I'll try and make this very brief. But my dad was a farmer. We were wheat and other grains and stud sheep breeders in South Australia, which we moved to Armidale in New South Wales when I was 1960. Oh, I shouldn't have said that, should I? Everyone can work out how old I am now. Anyway, we moved to Armidale, and Dad was doing the traditional farming. He was growing lucerne and various crops to make his own hay for the animals. And he had the aerial superphosphate being done. He was one of the first people in Armidale to do that. And the pilot always said it was so easy to see Dad's place because it was so green and it stood out. And this is one of the problems with chemicals. They can have apparent such great looking results that people assume it's good, and that's not always the case. Anyway, Dad did an experiment. He went off to Wagga to buy a stud ram, met a guy who was one of the pioneers in organics back then. It wasn't much talked about in the late 1960s, early 1970s. And Dad and a friend came home and thought they'd do their own experiment with an organic fertilizer, and they planted a crop, and they planted half the crop with organic fertilizer and half the crop with superphosphate, which is, one of the most common nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. I think that's 3 NPK. Anyway, the superphosphate part of the crop grew twice as tall as the part of the crop with mineral fertilizers. And Dad and his friend thought, well, obviously, superphosphate's better than doing organic because, look, it's twice as tall. That's what they thought. Then Dad let the sheep in, and guess what the sheep ate? The sheep ate the low crop. And it sounds like a silly story, but that was a real turning point in Dad's life and ultimately my life and many, many other people as a result. Because he realised, when the sheep are smarter than us, it's not such a good thing. Sheep aren't renowned for being brainy, so he just changed to all organic. He went into growing our own food as well, and they ultimately got into Manatech when it came along. My mum wasn't well, and they'd retired from the farm, interesting, to the Sunshine Coast, no longer able to grow all their own food, though Dad did try. But there were no bees on the Sunshine Coast. He used to have to pollinate his pumpkins with a cotton bud because there weren't any bees, because there's so many people around with chemicals, spraying their lawn and spraying pesticides on their roses or whatever. Sorry if you do this, but, it's really something to consider, this use of pesticides and chemicals, because it destroys the bees. Without the bees, we all die. They're our major pollinators. Anyway, Dad grew food and Mum was sick, and I not long got into Manatech, and I presented this to Mum and Dad, and Mum they'd been taking supplements for another company for 30 odd years, and Mum had still got sick. So Mum thought, why would yours be any different? She wasn't interested. But Dad read the literature, which I'm very, the whole terrain model thing, and that's what he understood. He understood the soil. He understood this health of the soil and how it related to our bodies. It made sense to him. So he was keen to start, but Mum wasn't. And we were very fortunate back then. Dr. Reg McDaniel came to Brisbane and was speaking, so we dragged Mum to Brisbane. And he told us some of the most mind-boggling stories of what they'd done with children with what do they call it? Alcohol syndrome, when they've, the mother's been an
Fetal alcohol syndrome.
addict. Yeah. Just with Alzheimer's, all sorts of incredible stories. So when we left that Mum said, okay, what do I take? Mum and Dad went on to be, I believe at the time they were the oldest presidentials in the world. I think they were 80 or 81, I forget now, when they actually became presidential, which was pretty amazing. And they both lived a great life. They did so well. It was great. Yeah. So, yeah, that's their story. But, that's what's been passed on to me. And I've been studying nutrition, most of my adult life, taken various supplements, but I've not seen anything like I've seen with Manatech. And not just in my life, but in so many people. I could just never stop recommending it.
Mm. And so, Karen, on hearing that story, it's like, I don't know, I'm not trying to be fear mongering at all, but it's like we're living in a war zone right now, and that there's so much misinformation, people aren't aware, right? So there's a war, really, either deliberate or secondary. We're being lied to in regards to our health and our food and everything you've just talked about right now. Most people are completely unaware, and now it's almost impossible to avoid the chemicals, right? So it's even eating organic, even doing the very best. Like, I eat pretty clean, do my very best, but I know my body still doesn't have enough to maintain good health with food alone. So can you comment on that, Karen? Like, how important is it for people to realize, even eating organic, that's not enough to maintain health in the current situation that we're facing?
You're absolutely right, Sharon. I mean, it's not like we're living in a war zone. We are living in a war zone. Really, we are. And, Big Pharma, I don't know if I should even say this, but Big Pharma has, got control of everything, not just the drugs, but they're involved, of course, in all the chemical industries. So, and it's all about money, and people have got so used to it. Farmers have got used to it, having to rely on poisons for chemicals and not use alternative methods. And, I've had many discussions with farmers, so I just can't manage without the glyphosate. But it's weighing up the damage, the danger of what's happening. But I mean, I buy organic exclusively, or at least chemical free, at least that. And I think that's essential. But I could testify to so many things I've learned from Dr. Nugent. And as he said many years ago, we can't control what's in the air, what's floating around. So the chemicals, the toxins, genetically modified stuff, I'm sorry to say, it is well and truly happening in our country and being imported in various goods as well. There's all sorts of dreadful things being added to food. I mean, you can become very zealous with reading the tins, and reading the contents of ingredients. But how do you read the contents of the fruit and vegetables? How do you read the contents of the meat? In my early years with Manatech, I used to do a lot of traveling, a lot of meetings, a lot of slideshows, and we had slideshows that were showing the dramatic drops in all the vitamins and minerals in fruit and vegetables from 1950 to when was that? When I started. I started Manatech in 2002, and the drops even up in the 80s were dreadful, and it's just got worse and worse. And even in the meat, I mean, I'm a very big advocate of meat. People may be vegetarians on this call, but I'm a big advocate of meat. I still think it's very highly nutritious and essential for us, and the most round source of protein. But there's things missing even in the meat, because if it's not in the ground, it's not in the grass, so it's not in what the animals eat or in the hay. And I live in the country now, and I meet farmers at the moment. We're just virtually in a drought out here. It's dreadful. And people I know who have dairy, or not dairies, but milking their own cows. It's just so hard to even get hay or anything for the animals that isn't got pesticides in it, to try and find someone with hay, and it's incredibly expensive if it is. So, I'm sounding really miserable now, Sharon. I think I should stop. But I mean, it's just so hard for us to get what we need from our food. And I think, this understanding with our products that they help us clean our bodies. It's our bodies that clean us, and it's our bodies that heal us. That's what we have to understand. And what we're bombarded with on the television, if you watch television, or even if you go to the doctors, is every single thing that may happen, requires a drug. And what we have to understand is that drugs are chemicals. Our body isn't designed for chemicals. Our body is designed for food. And our immune system recognises, this is the whole principle of the whole glyconutrient, glycan story, is that our body recognises what is good for us and what is wrong for us. That is our whole premise, that our immune system will identify. So if you're taking any medication, I'm not saying stop taking medication, and I never say that to other people, but if they begin to have a realisation of what the products offer and how their body can heal itself, many people willingly and ably get off medication. And because it is a chemical, and once you have anything synthetic going into your body, it creates an immune response, whether it's a Panadol or a hot dog, rubbish sort of food, that isn't recognised by the body, something that has toxins in it, or even things you put on your skin. That's another thing we have to be thinking about these days, is because anything we put on our skin ends up in our bloodstream. I mean, sunscreen to me is one of the greatest evils that's ever happened. Sunscreen, my belief is, I'll just go right out there, Sharon, is the sun doesn't cause skin cancers. It's our malfunctioning or dysfunctioning, whatever the correct term is, of our immune system. To me, all disease is related to our immune system and our body's ability to fight it by having a strong terrain in our body. Perhaps I should stop there.
No, that's awesome. And I think, the other thing, to both Karen and I have a nursing background, and I can say for myself, and I think you would agree, we're proud of our careers and dedicated. And I can remember when I started waking up to being disenfranchised to that system, not the individuals, but the system. And, people need to know that our doctors are trained by Big Pharma. Our studies are approved or not approved by Big Pharma. So in that area of science, we're not getting the health science, we're not getting the truth either. So we're not here to blame doctors or our organizations, but there are people that are pulling the strings that aren't interested in our best interest. So you're not going to hear this education if you're typically just sitting in the doctor's office.
Another major thing that's happening in the world that I think is worth considering too is we're being fed a lie of shortage, that there's not enough, that we can't provide enough, and but I just disagree with that also. I could go off on so many things. I mean, there's a big campaign against meat, for instance, that the cows are causing climate change. Well, I don't believe that's true either, and that we should eat insects instead. And there's just so many things we have to question these days. And as a Manatech associate, we really have to take responsibility, I believe, to do some research and to look into things and to question things, and not just believe what we're told. Not even believe necessarily what the doctors tell us. If you're going to the doctor, don't just think that's the only way, and help people understand. And we can never just say, well, don't do what the doctor says, obviously, but we can help people understand how their body works. And it gives people incredible hope. And that's what I've seen, incredible hope, that by changing some of their habits, adding Manatech products, they can restore their bodies to health. So that's our primary role, not to scare people, but to just show them the way.
Absolutely. And I'll just give you a quick personal experience. I have two twins that are 13, coming 14, and both of them have some slight health issues. Compliance with taking supplements lessened in teenagehood. I'm still working on that one. And I had to take them to specialists, and I could tell in both specialist appointments that these people, I could tell that they didn't know the whole truth. And so I've gone back to my GP, talked that through with her, and said, this is why I don't agree with the pediatrician. This is why I don't agree with the ENT specialists. And I've developed that so I'm not saying no to medical care. I'm empowering myself to be part of the decision-making process. So empowering yourself and doing your own education is the most important thing you can do right now in regards to maintaining and developing good health.
Absolutely. We've been programmed to believe that the doctors are like God, that the doctors know everything, they are the authority on health, but they're not. They're the authority on sickness.
Yeah.
You know, doctors, they're not even really an authority on the drugs they prescribe, because I've worked in doctors' surgeries and they're trained a lot of the time by the reps that come out from the drug companies. You know?
Me too. Yeah.
So, you know, we just have to lose this awe and be more knowledgeable ourselves and do our own research and not. If you want to go there for a diagnosis and then know what you're dealing with, fine. But anyway, we could talk about this for a very long time.
We could. So let's move on to Manatech. So what's the point of difference for us? You know, like right now we're talking to most of the people that are in our community, but this, you know, this is likely to be shared with people who are thinking about implementing Manatech into their life. So, you know, what's our point of difference?
Our point of difference, I'm not sure where you want me to go with that. Our point of difference is what the Manatech products provide, I guess.
And how they're made and and
the quality they are, the fact that there are no synthetic ingredients. I mean, anyone can go into a health food shop and see there's, you know, thousands of supplements available on the market today. There's thousands of companies. And I personally have never found anyone who's got what we've got. I've had people over the years change to other companies and not have very good results. And I won't go into detail about that. Some quite serious results. I've had people try and, no, I won't say that. Okay, so it's understanding our products, as I said about the research, learning about our products and understanding what they do. And that doesn't mean you have to go into the science in a big, deep way. But people have no idea about their immune system. I'm sure Sharon, I know I wasn't, and I know Sharon wasn't in our nursing careers. We didn't learn anything about how the immune system communicated information. I mean, I don't remember learning anything much about the immune system at all, frankly. And what's more, it wasn't really known when I was doing my nursing either. You know, it wasn't known how cells communicate, and that's really a new thing that only started in the 80s with the experiments that Dr. McAnally did with the aloe vera. So understanding that the ambritose, the manopole, and anything that's got the glyconutrients in it in our products, which is a lot of things, the immunostart, the manabears, you know, a lot of the products have some of the glyconutrients in anyway to help if people are only taking that product, like Plus has some in there as well, for instance. So understanding what these products are for and just keeping it very simple, because you lose people if you talk too much science as well. It's just understanding how the cells talk to each other. And I think some of the good old analogies are great, you know, like, 26 letters in the alphabet make up the words. So we're talking today, where you have this language with these tentacles on the outside of your cells that, you know, enable the cells to talk to each other and to transmit information and to find out what's good and what's bad and what's needed. So I just think understanding the significance of our products is essential, and people will feel your belief. I mean, initially when people start on our products, it's you they're trusting, really. They don't know that the products are good. It's you. So you really have to have that, I believe, that strong belief. It's your confidence in the products that will have a big result when you're talking to people. And the other one, of course, is the hormones. I mean, you know, how big is that? You know, the plus and the omega for improving our hormones. I think that's a question we're going to get to a bit later, Sharon, so I probably won't go into that now.
Yeah.
But it's just understanding that our products are not synthetic. A lot of the supplements on the market are. So you've got premise. Why do we need supplements? That's your first thing to be able to tell people. And also, you know, why are they ours the best? Why are they different? Yeah.
So, you know, like where possible, they're sourced from food and plants, which you can't really get better than that, and concentrated in a way that we can't get from the supermarket.
That's right.
So if you're talking to someone, like, this probably isn't the most frequent situation we'd experience, but somebody who's basically pretty healthy, would you add any more? I think we've covered that when covering the terrain, right? And the topic we've had. Would you add anything else to someone who just is you can see is already dedicated to their well-being and being proactive?
Well, yes, because I mean, I've seen it happen. You know, I know a lot of people who came into Manatech as a preventative measure, for instance, um, thinking they were healthy. Me, you know, I was one of those. I didn't have anything wrong that I thought, but I did, which I won't go into today, but it was quite dramatic what happened to me. I mean, but simple things like depression. I was just prone to depression, you know, for many years. You know, I had sort of lots of issues going on. And I've lost my train of thought there. I go off on tangent.
Prevention.
Sorry?
You're talking prevention.
Yeah, so talking prevention, that's right. And you've also got lots of different products you can start with, you know. I mean, there's people who are healthy. I recently enrolled a person who has a gym, and you know, he was in his late 40s, you know, wanting to stay fit. He runs a lot, does a lot of massive exercise, and he has his own gym and he's training people. But, you know, that age progression thing still starts to happen, and the quality of the food is not there. So even though people may be eating what they think is extremely healthy, they're not necessarily getting all that they need. I think one of the most dramatic ones I had was a friend once, actually back in the day, Sharon, when we were running meetings on the Sunshine Coast, you were organising them, and I did a presentation and I invited a new friend along who was into health. Nothing wrong with her, but she was interested in health. And I did the whole presentation like we used to do back then on the Sunshine Coast. And she thought it was great, but she was all right. She didn't need anything. Anyway, I just kept lending her casually CDs over time, you know, and she'd watch them because she was interested and give them back. And then she decided maybe her daughter needed it because her daughter was having some health problems. So she bought the products for her daughter, and she just decided to buy herself a bottle of Manna Bears. And she took the Manna Bears, she bought 2 bottles, took them for 2 months, and then they ran out and she stopped. And then she rang me up and said, "Oh my goodness, I didn't realise those Manna Bears were making such a difference. I feel so different without them." You know, that was really quite dramatic, I thought. You know,
Yeah.
so, you know, people don't realise that they're deficient. They just really don't realise. And I think asking questions, I think some of the questions you sent me said, how do you speak to people? How do you speak? Well, the key is, how do you listen? That's really the key. You know, we need to be listening to people and finding out where they are and even about what's wrong. You know, I always listen first before I talk. You know, if you're meeting people and chatting to them, I just had a lady come the other day. You know, she's broken her elbow, knocked off a bicycle in Townsville on a roundabout and broken all her elbow, and she thought I might have some comfrey because her mother knew I was into health somehow, you know. So we ended up, you know, talking about plus and how, you know, that helps, the progesterone helps make new bone cells, and she's 60. So situations arise, but it's always important to ask people what they know and find out. And be a bit diplomatic, because if they know a lot about organics, you don't want to be raving on about that and saying what's wrong. You've got to discern, you know, where you can come in with what they need. You know, what is their issue? Is it hormonal? Is it immune system? Like, I sound like I'm rambling, but years ago I used to push a lot for the whole lot. You know, people needed the core 5, and they still do. Don't misunderstand me, they still do. But I don't always come with the whole lot, because we're in a time where people, you know, have had a lot of drama over the last 3 years, and, you know, finances might be tough. So I'm very keen to sort of look for, it may be just the sports products, you know, the impact in the sport, if they want more stamina, you know, if they're doing a lot of exercise.
We're here to serve people, right? And to look for what's missing for them and how we could be of assistance, because they may not hear about Manatech, and it is unique. It's changed all of our lives. It's dramatically changed my life, and people won't hear about it unless we have the courage to keep our ears open and seeing what they're looking for in their life, and if we can assist them. So you're exactly on track. So let's go into a little bit more depth with hormone health. So, you know, in women, it's menstrual issues, perimenopause, postmenopause, and just general well-being, I guess, but also men benefit as well. So let's just talk about the hormonal support.
Okay. Can you just ask me that again in a minute? Because I think there was one question before about general well-being, and I wrote a couple of things down because I thought a lot about that. So there was just a couple of things that I think are very primary things you can do. And one thing is stop seed oils. Seed oils are very, very bad. And any health expert will tell you that. That's one of the worst things you'll be having. And vegetable oils have been promoted. If you buy fish and chips, they'll be cooked in vegetable oils and all those sorts of things. Seed oils are very bad for us. So that's one of the things we can try to avoid.
Seed as in sesame seed or?
Well, yeah, sesame seed may be one of the better ones, but canola oil is not. I bought organic butter the other day and it said spreadable, and I should have known. And then I read it had canola oil in it, of course, to make it spreadable. Canola oil is a very bad oil. The actual name of the plant is rapeseed. Does that tell you something? So it's not actually a canola, it's rapeseed. But I'm sorry if anyone's a canola oil farmer on the call. I do apologise, but I do not think it's good for us. I think it's very bad. And I listen to a lot of experts outside of Manatech too. It's pretty universal that seed oils are something to avoid, that doesn't do our bodies good. No processed food is another thing we can be working towards with helping people, because if we can help them avoid things as well as adding, that's going to accelerate their results, and that's a good thing. So no processed food if possible, just avoiding processed foods. I know they're all the things that taste nice, but, trying to avoid them is a good thing because they all have added chemicals and preservatives. Eating organic or at least chemical-free, I've already mentioned. Drinking pure water. It's amazing how many people still even believe that fluoride is good and is going to keep their teeth strong, which is quite alarming. I mean, chlorine, people don't understand. I talk to so many people that will still drink tap water, and with the chlorine, I don't know how they can, but if people aren't aware, they've got used to it and the taste doesn't bother them. But chlorine's put in there to kill bacteria, and it kills your good bacteria. You've got more bacteria in you than cells, really. We're just a massive bacteria, good and bad, but so much of the bacteria in our body is beneficial. So, chlorine kills your good bacteria. So, and your probiotics, your gut bacteria, all those things you need to digest your food properly. So helping people get off tap water is a major thing to do as well. And fluoride, well, that's a neurotoxin that dumbs people down. It's been proven to be a major cause of Alzheimer's and dementia. Fluoride is bad, bad, and bad. Yes, so that needs to be avoided too. Check ingredients in all your skincare, parabens and various things, because anything on your skin is going into your body and into your bloodstream. That's how Nicobate works for people who are giving up smoking. And that's why the sunscreen is so bad. That's why hand sanitizer is so bad. It's a total hormone disruptor, hand sanitizer. So I got kicked out of an op shop because I wouldn't put it on a couple of years ago. Funny little story that was. Anyway, and of course then, take Manatech products. But anyway, we'll move on to hormones now. I just wanted to put those few things in because, part of it, and we'll get to this, part of everything is building this relationship of trust. And I would not spout all that off on the first conversation. You have to build that rapport with people so that they trust you and know what you're talking about, and introduce things gradually, as you go along. So anyway, so on to the hormones. Do you want me to just go? Or
because it's so that, all the cycles of female hormones and male hormones, but also the impact on bones, thyroid, the whole hormonal and glandular system. How can we support it with food?
Well, I don't know anyway, apart from Plus and Omega, I'll be honest, Sharon. I know soy has phytosterols in it, but you have to be very careful with soy products that they're not GMO. And, I've just been, scared away from soy by many, many stories. But if you could get some soy products fermented, tempeh would be better than tofu, for instance. That may be, and you were guaranteed there was no GMO. That could be something. Sweet potatoes also are supposed to, but they're an absolute danger to eat when they grow sweet potatoes. If anyone knows, many of you probably know what they look like. They grow all over the ground like a vine. They just spread like pumpkins, sweet potatoes. So when they're grown commercially and it's time to dig up the sweet potatoes, all those vines are in the way. So they spray. They spray the vines to kill off the vines so they die and get out of the way, so it's easy to dig up the potatoes without this debris of the vines. But they leave it on for a day or two because it takes time to die. And in that space, it's going into the sweet potatoes. Mm. The vines are feeding the potatoes too. So this is the problem with getting what we need from our food. And, Mexican wild yam, which the Plus is based on, has been known for generations, really, as a hormone food. That's what Plus is. And I just keep it that simple. It's hormone food. It gives your body the plant hormones that should be in our food. Apparently, we should be getting 80 milligrams a day of plant hormones to keep our hormones in balance. Remembering we've got 86 or 87 different hormones. And our hormones are made every day and they fluctuate according to what's going on in our life. If we sleep in when we're due for an appointment, or we have some grief, or we have an accident, or we have an argument. I'm sure everyone has arguments. Sorry, I'm looking after my daughter's cat and she's deciding she wants to be patted. Shush up, Olive. I don't know how to stop a cat now. I'm sorry. Anyway, she's very lovely. Yes, go away, Olive.
She adds to the family experience.
Yeah. Now I've lost my track. What was I up to?
You're talking about hormone food.
Yeah, with hormone food. So we've got 87 hormones, and they fluctuate, and you use your hormones. Your endocrine system or hormonal system is the balancing system of the body. It regulates the regulatory system. That's a better way to put it. Regulates everything from digestion to even your immune system. Your hormones are transported around on those glycoproteins as well. So those two sort of just absolutely go hand in hand, the Ambitose and the Plus. But, your memory, your hair, your skin, your moods, your happiness, these multitude of hormones. And a big one that is a problem in these perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause is progesterone. That's just a big key one that's an issue. We produce progesterone in our live egg follicles, hopefully. And if we don't produce enough, it's a major cause of lots of things: depression, osteoporosis, low bone density, because you need progesterone to make new bone cells. Just so many things are caused, and PMS in young girls, premenstrual tension. It's a great cycle of how the estrogen goes up and then the progesterone comes up in our monthly cycle and then bleed and it changes. And if the progesterone isn't up enough and the progesterone's too high, that's when people are cranky. And it just seems to be endemic now that, I've had so many mothers on the phone with teenage girls who aren't even getting their periods these days. And so this is a real issue. Oh, I know what I was saying when the cat interrupted me. Dr. Nugent, taught us we need 80 milligrams of plant hormones a day to be able to keep our hormones in balance. And in the Western diet, we're lucky if we're getting between 1 and 3 milligrams in our food. So, I just see the hormonal issue as massive. The anger that's around, the road rage, there's so much unpleasantness around these days. And people have short fuses. I mean, the lady who yelled at me because I wouldn't put the hand sanitizer on when I went into an op shop, it was out of control. That was a lot based in fear, of course, back in those days. But people are, aren't even polite sometimes these days. They've just got short fuses. And I believe so much is hormonal because I know and I see the changes in people. And another thing that can happen, when the plus and the omega is part of the hormone production and your own cholesterol. Now, here's probably the biggest medical pharmaceutical lie of all. The widest drug, I believe, if it's been updated by something else at the moment, I'm sorry, but for a long time has been statin drugs. So this is a subject I really encourage you to do research on. There's a lot of good articles about it, not just through Manatech, but many doctors have written many things. Cholesterol actually should get higher. Cholesterol is a major part of your hormone production. So taking statin drugs to lower cholesterol is actually putting your life in danger. It absolutely is. And your hormones and how you feel, your sleep is affected with your hormones, so many things. Anyway, getting back to the post-menopause as well. In menopause, there's some 30-odd symptoms of menopause. Hot flushes, of course, are a common one. I've helped many people with menopause. Two ladies come to mind, especially that I know very well, that were both totally fit. One is a Zumba teacher and one was a master's rower. Both had hot flushes so badly, even though they were very healthy. So this is another thing, coming back to your previous question, Sharon, about people seemingly to be really healthy. This is often a very good place with people with, PMS or menopausal problems, or even postmenopausal. This can be a great place we can come in to help people. Because, as I said, you produce progesterone in your live egg follicles and estrogen, but estrogen can be produced easily elsewhere. So as long as you've got plenty of cholesterol and enough of the plus and omega, that's a major part of making your hormones as well. You can get your DHEA levels, and your DHEA is like the mother hormone load. And once your DHEA is high enough, if there's any shortages, like postmenopausal, for instance, and you haven't got enough progesterone, or even, PMS, anytime, menopause, if progesterone or any hormones are missing, once your DHEA levels come up, your body has a backup system of making progesterone from DHEA. So you can start to produce it again. And this is how people have turned around osteoporosis as well. And I know people who've done this because you need progesterone to make new bone cells. And I've had people recently and of course they love to diagnose now osteopenia. They like all these things that are pre-osteoporosis or pre-high blood pressure. What used to be normal blood pressure is now pre-hypertensive. So there's a lot of fear used, to get people onto medication. So if we can educate people about what the body's missing and why this is happening.
And thyroid as well.
And what's that?
Thyroid support as well.
Thyroid, did you say?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. The thyroid, and one of our best products for supporting, apart from the plus and omega, obviously, is also the bounce back. Dr. Again, another gem from Dr. Nugent, taught me many years ago. They sort of go into this special part in my brain, his information. And I need to write and thank him for that. Thanks, Sharon, for making me remember that. The curcumin, you've got different phytosterols in the bounce back. There are phytosterols or plant hormones in the bounce back as well, which are very good for the thyroid, as Dr. Nugent has taught us. But also the other major thing with the bounce back, of course, is the curcumin, which is from turmeric, concentrated. And, I grow turmeric. You can eat turmeric. You can buy turmeric tablets. But the curcumin in there, very concentrated, you need to have any effect. And it is an anti-inflammatory. And it's an amazing anti-inflammatory. Bounce Back is one of my favourite products. And what's also in there is bromelain, which is a derivative of pineapples, which helps our body absorb the curcumin better. So it's a great anti-inflammatory. It really helps people sleep. It's great for your thyroid. I just love it. I think Bounce Back is a wonderful product. And, the other wonderful thing about our products is the ability to take more amounts. And this is something we need to understand and be able to help people with as well. So amounts become an issue. And I was talking about the masters rower and the Zumba teacher, and they had such shocking hot flushes that we just kept going up with the plus. I found it's a good idea to keep the omega a fair way behind as well, up to about 12 even a day if necessary. But the plus, they went to 20 and 20, those two ladies went to 20 and 21 plus a day. And then their hot flushes stopped, just like that. And then they didn't have to stay there. They stayed there for a week or so and then just gradually came down, 1 or 2. And one stage, one of them got impatient and dropped about 5 at a time, and the hot flushes came back. This is how intricate our body is of what we need. I just love that evidence of what the plus is doing. And they just went up again, a couple, stayed there, eventually came down to quite normal levels, got through this. But there can be many, many things, but bone density is a major. Bone density is a major, and this is a huge indicator of what food has gone down the drain, because bone density should increase as we age. It should increase, not become common. And we've got to the stage now, if people fall over and break a hip, they're undecided whether they broke their hip because they fell or they fell because their hip crumbled. They're not sure which is which sometimes.
Yeah.
So this just shouldn't be happening. So it's so important. The plus and omega are so important, and not taking statin drugs. And I have some, very powerful articles about those drugs. That's an absolute mission of mine, this whole cholesterol thing. There was a program on Catalyst on the ABC some years ago, some of you may remember that, where they absolutely slammed statin drugs. But then the ABC got hauled over the coals and did a big sort of retraction thing. But, we just need to know what's going on to protect ourselves, and then be diplomatic about how we share the information. But
it's shocking for some people to, I can remember waking up to the health system that I so believed in wasn't all that I've thought. And it can be quite a process for people to go through. So, gentle and compassionate communication is paramount.
Well, the whole reason Manatech went to this method of marketing was because it needed explaining. The story I was told many years ago was that one of the ladies on the board, they'd tried to sell, originally there was just the Manos, form of Manopol, and they were selling it in a health food shop, and it was quite a lot of money and no one was buying it. And this lady said, this is what happened with Tupperware, apparently, back in the beginning, that people were sending Tupperware back because they couldn't shut the lids. And that's why they went to the party plan, to show people how to burp the lids of Tupperware. So I just always thought that was a great story, and that's why we have this method. So it's incumbent on us to know what we're doing and how to explain things to people and how to tune in with where they're at. Like, you don't want to be trying to tell people things they already know. So this is why the listening is so important. This is my major thing, to become a good listener and find out where people are at, what their beliefs at. If they, you get people and they just have absolute, and I'm sure you've all had this happen, absolute and total faith in the doctor. And that's a bit of a hard road sometimes, and it doesn't always work. But, you just have to do your best and explain what you have. I've become a bit more bold these days, but that's based on having more knowledge. Knowledge is your friend with this, but listening to people and talking less. What they say, we've got 2 ears and 1 mouth, and we should use them in that ratio. Yeah. So I think that's the key, and finding out where people are at and just starting gradually, listening.
So 2 key questions left, Karen. And just before we leave hormones, I'll just say it's also a self-defense strategy for parents of teenagers. Plus.
Sorry, what was that again?
It's a self-defense strategy for parents of teenagers. Plus, I'll put in a little plug for people who have teens.
Getting the children to take the plus, is that
Yeah,
what you're meaning?
sneaking it
Yes.
in where you can.
Yes, I have that situation with grandchildren. I have one who takes it willingly and one who doesn't.
So two questions. One, emergency situation. Sometimes we're introduced to someone or come across someone who, you know, the horse is already bolted and they're in an emergency situation. What do you recommend throwing at a fire in that situation?
Give me more about an emergency situation.
Well, that they've got a diagnosis that's significant and they need help.
Yes, I've got one of those right at the moment. Again, I think if it's an urgent chronic immune system issue, and I think we all know what that means. I'm talking about an underactive immune system where something bad's not being destroyed.
Yeah.
I've just had that situation happening right now, waiting on the products to arrive in Brisbane for somebody. And I've just gone with Ambritose Life and Manopol. I just kept it simple because it's very late stage.
Yeah.
And so that's all I'm going to do, you know, to be going on with other products. And I learned that from Dr. Nugent too, with someone a lot of you know, Sandy Braid in my business. A lot of you know Sandy Braid's story, 2008. Sandy Braid. And we had Dr. Nugent's advice, and he said then, just focus on the Ambritose, you know, don't be so concerned about how much of the other products. And, you know, hopefully I'll get to bring in the other products ongoing, but initially I'm just going to go for that. And I spoke to Judy Abbott only the other day, and she's just had an incredible result with a man in Royal Brisbane where they allowed her and just feeding Manopol only into him. And it wasn't what the other thing, it was had a lot of bleeding. He was bleeding all over his body. And his kidneys were failing, his liver was failing. I shouldn't have said that probably. Anyway, they were just feeding Manopol. The hospital let them do it, amazingly. So thanks, Judy. You know, we get inspiration from so many places, and just talking to Judy, it just gave me a lift to hear these stories, you know. And that's another thing that I do a lot, is tell stories. I know we're not allowed to send testimonials or do any of that, but we can just tell stories if we're talking on the phone or in conversation sometimes, you know. We don't have to go into too much detail, but just to encourage people. I think sometimes we just need to tell stories. I think it's so important now. I don't want to be running in fear. I'm a bit, you know, sticking my finger up lately and just being a lot more bold in what I say, which is maybe why my internet
we won't go down that path.
Yes, Judy. Someone's just written Judy is brave in the hospital setting. She's amazing. I'm so impressed what she's done. And then she went and had a meeting. She went and had a meeting with all the doctors and, you know, confronted ridicule and criticism. You know, go Judy. You know, we're wellness warriors, as you keep saying. And you know, this is huge, and the world is in a war. You know, the food is seriously compromised, the air is seriously compromised, and knowledge is seriously compromised because a lot of things are being submerged and subverted, you know, good information. So we need to be very proud of our products. You know, I mean, I have two of my children, three of them actually, are real fitness fanatics, you know, work out, they look great. My son Ashley's 43 now, and he just can't get over. Now, he hasn't got anything wrong, but he takes all products and he does massive exercise every morning and works physically, and he's back up north doing whitewater rafting on a part-time basis, you know, going down the Tully, which is very physical. But you know, he said he can't get over his peers. You know, they you know, that they aren't as, they look older.
Vital.
They're not as fit. They're not doing as well. You know, so this is, you know, this is streamlined health, energy, good thinking. You know, nutrition covers so many. It's our life, our body, our mind, our brain, everything. It's made up of the right nutrients. You know, this is how our body's created. And those hormones we talked about have to be created every night. We're going over time. you know, you make your hormones primarily, most of them between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., which is why, you know, going to bed earlier is better for you, you know. Early to bed, early to rise, and makes you healthy, wealthy, and wise.
People think I'm lying when I say I'm 67.
Yeah, well,
you know,
people
they question me. They doubt what I think.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's a great testimonial. And people think the same of me when I say I'm 72, you know. They just
exactly.
don't really believe it, you know. So,
and so
and not
final,
just,
two final questions. Oh, go ahead.
Yep. No, you go.
Well, yeah, that's the point. You know, it's been what, 28 years for us, is it now? 28 or 20? How long have we been in Australia?
1998.
96, 98?
No, it was 98 in Australia, I think. And the Ambrotose
right.
was patented from day one too in Australia.
Yeah.
98. Yeah, and I joined in 2002. Yeah. So 21 years this month, actually, for me. Yeah. So
wow. And so that's the difference. That's what, you know, that's the impact of longevity. And so just, you know, the final question before we leave what's in your heart is, you know, we're talking the longevity of taking these, and sometimes people forget that. So how do you coach people to maintain their commitment to themselves ultimately? It's not necessarily a business question, you know, that we want volume or income coming in, but we have a duty of care to people to help understand the potential of that longevity on their future life. And sometimes you forget that in the day-to-day slog of taking, you know, affording supplements, of making good habits of taking them. Yep. How do you help people with that, Karen?
Well, very often people ask me, how long will I have to take these products? Because they still have the medical model that you take something for a certain period of time till you're better. And I always prefer to answer a question with a question. And my answer to that is, well, do you think the food's going to improve? And you know, the answer is no. Do you think things are going to change? And we're not seeing that. We're seeing it get worse. And of course, I've already taught them that as we've gone along. But my big keys with retention, and retention is the strength of my business. You know, I'm not as active as I used to be. I don't travel. I don't do meetings. I still coach people, and I still do three-way calls. Three-way calls is how I built my business. People still get referred to me that I don't know. And, you know, I talk to them on the phone. I have so many people in my business that have been on the products, some of them 12, 15 years I've never met, and yet I'm still talking to them. I know it's very much promoted to have an easy care business, get people on an automatic order and help them do it themselves. Well, I'm sorry, I don't think that works, because people have a budget issue and they talk themselves out of it and reduce their order or cancel their order or think this is not doing me any good. People need repetition. Now, some people, you know, on this call might think they want to hear what I say. It's good to hear repetition. I like hearing repetition. I like hearing Judy have that result with the manifold. But our clients need repetition. They need to be reminded. You know, I know, and I don't even know why, but I know people who have UTIs, commonly urinary tract infections, women, if they take 8+ a day, always, not go back, they've got to stay there, they won't get one again. And I have had, and I don't even know why that works. They're on the other products. I know the Ambrotose is important too, but I've had people say they get better on 8+ quicker than if they took antibiotics, which is the normal thing people are given for a UTI. So where am I going? So my retention is about keeping in contact, telling stories, reminding people what the products are doing, because they forget. They forget what they're taking the plus for. That's their hormones. They forget why they're taking the Ambrotose. They talk themselves out of the Ambrotose because it's the most expensive for them. And then you have to be reminded again. So if I didn't have those monthly calls to adjust their order and have a chat, and some people, it's a long chat. Some people just need 45 minutes and they talk for 40 of it, you know. So I accommodate that. I accommodate that because I care, because I'm their friend. I really care about their health. And a lot of them, you know, have had very bad things in the past, and only through knowing me and taking these products, I believe a lot of times are they still alive and well. So that's how I do it. That's what retention is about, not pouring them in and hoping they'll manage themselves. That's blunt, isn't it?
Well, because it's the outcome is what's important, right? It's the outcome for these people that we are serving.
And Sharon, I have quite a number of older clients, that do have money, not rich, but I have quite a number of customers who spend between $800 and $1,300 every month. They've got some significant health challenges, but they spend that money and have been doing so for years. But I'm quite convinced if I didn't talk to them every month, manage their orders, help them get one lady, for instance, her first question is, how much have I got to spend? That's her loyalty. That's her first question. She loves the loyalty. So it's all these different things. She loves the loyalty, So how much have I got to spend? So we work that out first, then we do the order. What she can get.
The loyalty can't be understated, isn't it? It's amazing.
The loyalty is so powerful, yeah. So it's all about keeping in touch with people, caring about them and listening to them.
Yeah, well, that's what Rhonda's just saying here. You pay for your health proactively, or you end up paying for your illness, which is just so true. There are so many tools that we can take into our own hands to change that situation. So, Karen, what would you like to leave people with today?
Well, Rhonda's just said nobody has 20% loyalty, and I have to concur with that. I use the loyalty program as a very strong thing. Back in the day, when we used to have very big beginner packs, it was really hard to bring up the subject of an automatic order. It was the main question everybody had on every call. So now I just talk about the loyalty right from the start. Kuranda, the organic food shop on the Sunshine Coast, and the health food shops in Brisbane, 1%. So understanding how massive this 20% is and using it to keep people on the products is very, very powerful. So what I'd like to leave people with is listen more, be prepared to give people your time. They need us. Things are dire. And the last 3 years, if that's shown us all anything, is that people have no idea about their immune system. That's the biggest learning curve of the last 3 years, is that people just do not understand how their immune system works. And that's our mission. It's our immune system that protects us from anything bad. Yeah, that's my big thing. Listen, stay with people, tell them stories, care about them, look after them, keep making suggestions, know the specials. These are all powerful things. Know the Zen bundle's great, know the different specials. We've got quite a lot now. And some years ago, we had a call with Jenny Messenger, Judy Abbott and I, and somebody else, I forget who now, just making suggestions for bundles. And I just noticed one of them that was suggested, I think Judy suggested it actually, giving her the credit, was a children's bundle. So when we get the GI Pro back, you may have noticed with the new price list, we've got 2 GI Pro and 2 Mana Bears and a GI Pro. Wonderful children's bundle. So that's just a whole range you can start with, 2 Mana Bears and a GI Pro. Wonderful for children. And they all taste good, you see. So that's good.
They do taste good, don't they? No problem getting those into kids.
Yeah, well, they're saying September. I don't know. I'm not holding my breath. Everyone start praying. It's September.
GI Pro for September. It's the group prayer.
Yeah.
So Karen, God bless you.
All our businesses will boom when the GI Pro comes out. Honestly, I would have at least 4 customers a month asking, is the GI Pro back here? People are really noticing not having it, So anyway.
Well, that's another symptom of that global challenge we've been referring to for so long. So, hey, everybody, thanks for being with us, and we're delighted being with you. Okay. So have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you, Karen.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Go get them, everybody. We're very important.
All right. See you, everybody. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Bye.